It says it is 6:30, so as chair of the meeting, I'm going to be starting this meeting by calling it to order. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Luzader. I'm going to be the chair of this meeting this evening since I'm vice chair of the BCA, and Wendy Savory cannot be here this evening as chair, so I am stepping into this role this evening. Just a few things before we begin. Again, welcome. When we are talking about things, let's remember that in an open public meeting to keep our comments germane, and that when we are going ahead to do things, to focus on the issues and the motions on hand and not on personalities. Also, I just wanted to let this board know, you can make motions about things. You can even make motions about things like about the public comment period. If you want to make any restrictions in public comments on time or subject matter, that is within your purview to do as board members. And I think with those things said, we're going to continue with the meeting.
Kathy, I'd like to make a motion right off the bat. This is a Wallingford town issue. We have a lot of people here that are not Wallingford residents. I'd like to make a motion that only Wallingford residents are allowed to comment.
So there is a motion on the floor that only Wallingford residents are allowed to comment. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Do we have discussion? Yes.
I feel this is more than, as much as a lot of people don't want to believe it, I think this is more than just a Wallingford BCA item that we have to take care of, only because we are having to make a decision on whether a person is on the checklist or not. But the reason we're having to make that decision has been put in our hands by the school board of the Mill River Unified School District. They have put it in our hands by saying that they are not able to decide whether or not that Mr. Moreton is allowed to stay on the board. That is a Wallingford decision to be made. When they put that back to making it a Wallingford decision to be made, that put it into our hands. So really, not only does the BC, it's all germane to what's the decision that's made by the select board. And I think if anybody in the public wants to make any comments about how the BCA allowing a person that they don't possibly feel should be on the checklist, I think if a person feels that they shouldn't be allowed to do that because it does allow that person to be on a board within the district, then I think those people should also be able to speak. That's fine.
Are there any other comments? Well, we're going to move the motion to be voted on. Since we are, and maybe I'm going to get this point with Julie, since we have somebody who is electronically with us this evening, do we need to take a poll vote? Because I read in public meeting law that when you have somebody coming in electronically, that you then need to take a roll call vote on all your votes. Right. So all our votes this evening, just to let you know, will be roll call votes because we have somebody who is electronically in on the meeting this evening. So I'm going to call the question. Does the votes for the motion that only Wallingford residents get to make to comment during public comments? Say, I guess we'll start down that end table. Bruce?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
No.
Aye.
Oh, first here.
No.
Aye.
I'm abstaining.
No.
What did Ken say?
He said no.
No.
And Tony said aye.
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 So what is the vote, Julie?
You first say aye?
Yes. Oh, Kate, what's your, yes,
Kathy, I vote no.
okay. And Kate is a no.
5 noes.
The ayes have it. Okay. Moving on. I don't believe that we have any agenda additions or deletions this evening. Is that correct, Julie? Okay. So now we are moving on to approving the 3:02:23 minutes. And Justin has just arrived. Justin Jenkins is here. So if everyone please look at their minutes. And we will need a motion on this.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Second to accept the minutes as written.
I have a question.
Discussion, yes.
Nan Dubin. My question is, I think, Julie, did you send a revised minutes, or are these the original minutes, the draft?
The draft of the original.
Okay, well, then I have a point here, because there's an error in here, so do I just read it out? So it says, this is kind of in the bottom of the first page, it says, Maureen Duchesne pointed out that Ken Fredette's letter from the last meeting stated that Mr. Moreton resided here from April through November 2022, which would establish his residency requirement of 183 days. And that's incorrect. Ken Fredette did not write a letter saying that Mr. Moreton had lived here. He wrote a letter saying Mr. Moreton told him he had lived here, which I think is a point that needs to get made.
So I'm going to attach his comments to tonight's minutes because that is what Maureen said at the meeting, even though it's not correct. Right. That's what she said, so I can't change that. Okay. But I can certainly attach his comments to tonight's minutes. Or I could put in parentheses his comment that what he stated. But that is what she stated. Okay.
And so
What I'm saying that
we're
is
going
what
to attach Ken's,
right, and I can put after this what he's saying in his letter that he did not state it, that Mr. Moreton stated it in the letter. I can put that after this. Okay. But she did state that. It's not just because it's wrong, but
that this
I didn't get it wrong,
that this is
what I'm
the correction
saying.
and that the correction
Right.
will be
So I will,
attached to this. Okay.
right, and I will also make a note in those minutes.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
Thank you. Jennifer, from Wallingford.
can I just say one quick thing? Because I'm new to this. This is actually the first meeting I've ever had to chair. So, I am wondering, since we are not, and I'm also a teacher, so because we are not in the public comment section yet, I don't know what is apropos. Do we take a comment from the floor at this time when we're approving minutes? I would,
I can give you the Reader's Digest version just to clear up. I agree with Julie that what she wrote was true,
okay.
and I can save the rest of it for public comment.
I would say save the rest of it for public comment because you're not part of the BCA. And right now, we're trying to approve the minutes from the meeting of the last BCA. Julia, am I correct in this?
Yes.
Okay,
You're correct.
Forewarn the town clerk and you that I wanted to offer corrections to the minutes. And I also have public comment. I can just,
I would say, I think it fits a little bit better in the public comment section.
here's the chair.
Thank you very much. Okay. Great. So now, we have discussed the minutes. Is there anything else we need to add? Okay. So, those who approve, do we accept to approve the minutes? From 3:02:23? I guess we're doing roll call because we have Kate on the phone. So Justin?
So, Justin Jenkins, I was not at that meeting, so I abstained.
Great, abstain?
Except.
Accept.
abstain, I wasn't here.
Kate?
With the attachment, I accept them with the attachment of Mr. Fredette's, as Julie said she would do.
And Kate, do you accept the minutes?
I do, as Gary had indicated with the attachment.
Okay. So the minutes from our last meeting have been accepted. We are now going to open up, we're going to have public comment at the beginning and at the end. So we're going to start, because we do have another meeting after this one. The public comment section, we're going to keep right now to 10 minutes before. Then we're going to be going to issue number 5, and then we will have public comment again after this. So just to let you know, if you would like to make comments before we readdress the BCA's decision, if you could please keep them brief right now so that we can get into the readdressment that we need to do, and then there will be time for public comment after as well. Okay? Yes.
Tony Masick. I probably go by Mr. Morton's residence, in quotes I'd say, more than anyone, since I live closest to it and I go by there. And I would swear that he has not opened his gate since possibly sometime in September. I've looked for tire tracks, I've looked for footprints, and if he says he's been there, he must have come in from down in South Wallingford over the ridge. So I just think he's being dishonest to say that he lives there. Thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question? You said the last time you saw him there was September.
I had never seen him there. The last time I presumed that the gate might have been open was possibly in September.
Did you observe that the gate was open during the summer?
No, but I know that his camp is open then, so I presume that it was.
And when would you say that the camp season starts over there?
You have to ask him,
Okay.
but all I know is that, I started hiking out there in mid-September, and I never saw the gate open through October. I ski past there and walked, never been open, never saw any sign of any residents.
Other public comments before we get to the issue at hand? Yes.
Eric Burns. I'd like to point out that if indeed Mr. Moreton has said that he has lived there from April to September in the summer, that the place he's supposed to be living in is considered a primitive camp, which means no more than 90 days residence and no more than 21 days in a row.
And is this in our...
Yes, statutes.
Okay.
Just to point out that if he's there for 180 days, he's in a primitive camp, he's breaking the law.
Other public comments? Yes.
Rob Barker, West Hill Road. I've been following this issue, and it's a struggle for us. We're at each other's throat about it. I mean, and it's because of the situation that he's on a board representing us. He's an official. And, but that's not your concern. Your concern is residency, not whether he's on the school board or not. And I think Wallingford people need to address this. And we have been doing it for months. And we had a golden opportunity after the meeting, February 15th, I think, where we took him off the checklist, and he threatened with a lawyer to take us to court about a fairly warned meeting according to open meeting law. That should have been defended. We had an opportunity right then to say, see you in court. And had we, this would be over now. They would expedite a case like this. Lawyers and judges love this. Nobody's going to go to jail. Nobody's family is broken up. Let's do Wallingford today. they would take care of us, solve our problem. And I'm sorry, we elect a town agent. We elect, and that is a person who handles civil issues. And that person needs to be contacted. And my suggestion for you tonight is to make a motion to invalidate your last meeting. So we're going back to whatever, 15th, and go to court. And the reason you didn't do it, money? What? I don't know what reason. This is a gift to us to go to court, because we have a real unsolvable problem here. That's it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The point I wanted to make about the minutes, a couple points, was I did say Bruce Moreton had written that he spent that time at his camp, but the rest of my quote was left off, which was the point I was trying to make, was that he said he was able to do that because he had access to electricity, but in the same statement said he wasn't able to make improvements to the camp because he didn't have electricity. So by leaving off the last part of that quote, it spun the thrust of my statement 180 degrees. Also, there was a citizen who questioned my saying he hasn't applied for any permits, for moving in by fall of 22, and were any permits actually required? There are permits required. There are several permits required to transfer from seasonal to residential, and he also needs potable water permits and wastewater permits from the state, maybe addendum to his Act 250 permit, but I didn't just say he hasn't applied for any permits for no reason. Now, for my public comments, I'm gonna skip over some of it, but I hope you will attach it to the minutes. I'll just stream.
No, Ken, we're not into the readdressment yet, so I wonder if we want to see if there's people who have other comments that they would like to make during the public comment section right now, because I think what we're about to get into is our next issue on our agenda, which is about the readdressment. And I know that you're going to be speaking during that.
Before there's a vote, you're going to call for public input?
We're having people address what they've written to us, correct?
He does it now.
Oh, he does it right now, okay, thank you.
I just said I was going to skip over part of it.
Yes, no, go right ahead, yeah.
The meeting of March 2nd should never have happened. The Select Board violated open meeting laws on February 21st and circumvented due process. After the BCA voted to remove him on February 15th, Mr. Moreton could have and should have appealed that decision to a superior judge pursuant to 17 BSA 2148 at no cost to him, and statute, as Mr. Barker pointed out, provides for expediency in that process. Instead, as it stands right now, it will fall upon the people to take the matter to court, no doubt at considerable expense, and the can would be kicked down the road probably for months. Mr. Moreton regularly makes statements matter-of-factly that are opposite of the truth, such as being told by officials he does not need any town permits and that he has not violated any state wastewater regulations when the people he is allegedly quoted deny having said such things. And I have documentation of that if you like. He declared that the case law I provided for February 15th meeting from Victory, that was provided to me by the Secretary of State as an example. He says that it has nothing in common with this situation, when it's actually nearly identical to this situation. And he also says his cabin being listed as seasonal has no bearing on anything, when in reality, it is the paramount issue here. You have to go through a process to go from seasonal to residential, and it currently does not even approach qualifying as a residence. I'll stay germane here, won't take this, he's comparing this. He said he pledged. He was challenged. The BCA didn't take any action on it until February 15th. They took him off the checklist, and instead of challenging it to a superior judge, he wrote a threatening letter to the select board, and here we are. He was put back on the checklist. He pledged to move in by fall of '22, and he made no measurable progress as of February 15th of this year, and he was removed from the checklist. We shouldn't even be here tonight. Now he's saying he's going to move in this fall, and but maybe winter in Rutland, and making a ridiculous comparison to people wintering in Florida, who actually have bona fide residences to come back to. As the saying goes, fool me once, shame on me. I'm sorry, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. There's no need for another challenge letter, and if I'm wrong about that, I want to hear it from a judge, not from very vocal people in this room who have clear conflicts of interest. Please undo this board's action on March 2nd and remove Bruce Moreton from the Wallingford checklist. At such point in time, when he has a bona fide residence here, he can re-register. And I also request that you ask for public comment before a vote. Thank you.
Do we have other public comment? Yes.
Lynn Edmonds. I prepared a statement that I would like to submit for the minutes. As many of you probably know from this last two meetings, my main concern with this whole thing is the fact that we did not follow due process. We did not send a challenge letter. We did the first time, but we didn't the second time. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from on this whole thing. I'm not sure if I'm the one that has the conflict of interest that Ken refers to, but I assure you, this is my main focus, is we have not followed the process that is laid out for us in for the Justice of the Peace in our manual and the guidelines for that process. I have no problem if this goes to court or wherever it happens after you send that challenge letter. But my main focus is we're not doing due process in this case. So I prepared a statement that says, today is the fourth meeting to prosecute the case against Bruce Moreton. He is alleged not to be moving fast enough to satisfy his accusers, who at least to this point have been unwilling to send another challenge letter to assess the status of his progress. And by the way, if you did that, you would have another affidavit and you would have him on record. It wouldn't be he thinks or we think or whatever the case may be. Most reasonable people would not see a problem with a delay as long as he was acting in good faith. But no one should be content with the fact his accusers are not inclined to send the second challenge letter to find out why. Can we at least muster enough goodwill to follow the guidelines and procedures laid out for the BCA when challenging a voter? Who among us would complain if another challenge letter was sent to ensure fair and equal treatment of Mr. Moreton? If there is someone who objects, then let them give sworn testimony to this body supporting their contention as to why procedures should be denied to Mr. Moreton. Thank you.
Do we have any other public comment at this time?
I just have a question. What are the actual requirements for residency? Are there specific, I know there are lots of different ways to test.
And can we have your name, please?
Sorry, Carolyn Sloan.
Okay.
There are a lot of different tests people can use to determine residency, so I'm wondering what our town has chosen to use as that test. And
It's a state law.
it's a state law. Okay, so what is that state law and has it been met? It feels like it's a pretty easy question. an answer.
Under state law, you have to live in your town 183 days a year.
And has this happened?
Yes, he has, according to what he states in an affidavit. In an affidavit to this board, he states he has lived here that long.
And is there a procedure for questioning that affidavit is true? I mean,
It's a sworn affidavit.
It can be questioned.
so he could be charged with perjury if he is found to have fountain. Okay. So who would take up that case?
A lawyer.
Well, I mean, would it be the town? Would it be a class action suit? Has there anybody discussed what the next step might be?
I think the step that the board would make is if first the board can send a challenge letter about challenges in residency. And then if there is a feeling, that's one step that can be taken. Another step that can be taken is to take the action that was taken in the past about taking him off the voter roll, so we have evidence that what he is saying is not accurate, and that we're taking that, and that then he can challenge that in court. So those are there any other steps that I've left out? No, there do not seem to be other steps that I've left out.
Okay, so, and we're gonna vote on those two choices? or-
We'll be talking about this.
But that's exactly what we did, is we did take him off.
We did, okay, and then the question is, how did it get overturned exactly? That's the
Because,
confusion?
well, if I may be permitted to answer, because of a lot of misinformation, I believe, that was fed to this board by both members of the board and people in the public. We were forced to believe that the town was going to be put in financial peril by being sued, which we weren't necessarily going to be sued monetarily. We were going to be taken to court possibly to be taken off the checklist. Because of that, a lot of people voted in a 9-2 vote, I believe, that they wanted to get this out of their hands because they were afraid we were going to be sued. And that's part of, when we get into discussing this, part of the things I want to talk about is the reason why I believe that the actions we took previously should never have been taken. And
Well, just to be clear, there are people on this board that feel opposite of that, and that feel that it was an action that needed to be taken.
that was my feeling.
Right, and the vote you can see the votes from the minutes came to a different decision. So we're readdressing it because this was brought forward as something to be readdressed, and I hope that answers your question.
So people would probably change their mind in a different vote?
I'm hoping that
They express that, or, I mean, I guess that's why we're here? Okay. All right.
That's why we're here.
Okay.
It's happened 3 times.
Yes, so.
Third time's a charm.
I'm Carol Tashi, Creek Road. I just really want to go back to Erica's comment because she's in the know. And what I hear you saying is that if I set up a tent somewhere in Wallingford, I have a residence in Wallingford, but if I set up a tent somewhere in Wallingford and live in that tent, an unpermitted seasonal location for I couldn't stay there for more than 90 days. Is that correct?
Out of the year, it would depend on where you put the tent, how you put the tent, what you're gonna do with waste and everything, but it's slightly different with a tent as opposed to a primitive camp.
Okay.
And the property record states primitive seasonal. It states seasonal camp, if I recall correctly, which basically states that it does not have running water in the building. I don't believe it has electricity in the building. It's on the listing card, I don't even think it registers as a bathroom in the building. So that would fall under Vermont state statutes, which basically says it's a hunting camp, if you will. I mean, I'm kind of extrapolating a little bit. Sure. But it's a camp that is designed not to be a permanent home, maybe a weekend, maybe during hunting season, but no more than 90 days out of the year, total.
Erica, isn't it also true that there's a finished house on that property?
There's a
There's a
finished house on that
on
property.
that
But that's
property.
not the house that he,
How do you know that?
How does
I said the house
I
that
think
he
you're
gave me.
stepping way out of line
When you
here.
first left the letter, I think she asked a question. Would, Erica, do you know that that is the camp versus the house that might be on the property? Do you
The
know?
house that he's claiming is not the one on the camp. The house he's claiming, as far as I know, is the one that is the primitive. Because the one at the camp is not, he's on 10 acres within 120 acres. And if you look at the site plan, the house that he supposedly is fixing up to live in is the seasonal camp. That was what he asked me, that is what I told him. He did not mention living in any other house, and even if he does, it's not permitted.
So can I finish my comment? Yes. So just to finish, thank you so much. And I just ask that the board keep an open mind with this. I know we all have our opinions and our beliefs, and I think that while I respect what Rob Barker said about the Mill River Board, it doesn't play into that, but I think it does. I think for many of us, that's a big part of our passions around this, or our passionate feelings around that. So I just ask the board to really take into consideration the fact that state statute says 183 days, and yet state statute, or is it Wallingford or state, says that you can't live in a primitive place for more than 90 days. And so that seems to be a real disconnect here. And so
It's actually 60.
Okay, thank you.
I believe.
Yes.
60
Or
days.
3 consecutive weeks.
So I just ask, we're all good people here, and I just ask that we kind of take some of the politics out and hear some of the facts and make a decision based on that. Thank you.
Do we have any more public comment at this time?
If I can add, according to the property listing, the other house is not a residence. He's only, I reviewed the records the other day, and basically the other house goes to the boys' camp. It's not the one that he specified that he was living in. And I'd like to make that perfectly clear. The other house is still, I mean, if you look at the tax rolls and everything, it's kind of a murky little situation. But the Act 250 basically does not specify that anyone can live there year-round.
For either place?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
As I interpret it, which of course somebody else could interpret it differently.
Okay. We have finished with public comments. We are now going to move into readdressing the BCA's decision on voter status. So I think I turn it over.
Okay, well, I guess probably because I'm the person that called for this meeting, I could take it from here. The reason I called for this meeting is because I really, after our meeting on the 3rd, I really walked away at the losing end of a 9-2 vote. I felt that I couldn't understand why 9 people on this board felt that somebody who hadn't lived in Wallingford, didn't live in Wallingford for 6 months, or for a year and a half, should still be on the voter checklist. I know that this person stated that they had lived there for 6 months during the year, but I know that Mr. Masick back there, for a fact, has stated that out of 2 of those months that he said he lived there, he didn't live there. I recreate up on Wallingford Pond all the time. I hunt up there. Family has property up there. I'm up there all the time. I can tell you right now, the only time I've ever seen Bruce Moreton up there is between his 1st of July till the 1st of August, when he's running his camp up there for kids to pay $1,300 a week to spend time in camp up there. And when that's done, he's done. So for him to continuously say that he lived up there for 6 months, I don't buy into it. I don't believe it. He can say he does, I can say he doesn't, and I've got as much right to say that as he does. But anyways, at the end of that vote, I said, well, when I was trying to figure out why all these people did this, I can tell you why I think the 9 people voted the way they did, and it starts with a board member insisting there was nothing more that we could do than put him back on the voters checklist and send him another letter, but there was more that we can do. The person kept pointing out that if you look at the JP handbook, which is a guide, not a set in stone thing, it's a guideline what JP can use. It also said in there that we could take him to court. He could go to court, and that's where it could be solved. So we weren't finished when we had challenged him and he had responded. That wasn't the end of it all. There was more that we could do. When I came into the beginning of that meeting on March 3rd, 2nd, 3rd, the first thing I stated is, I would like to see us take this problem, and solve it by putting it in the hands of a judge. It's exactly what should have been done. It's been pointed out by Mr. Fredette and a few others. That's the way it's normally held. If he's been challenged, he gives us a letter, we don't buy into it, he continues to be challenged, he goes to a judge, asks the judge to make a determination of whether we're right or whether they're right. Well, the board, by voting to put him back on the voters checklist, at that point in time, that made it our problem. It's no longer his problem to bring it to a judge. Now it's become our problem to bring it to a judge. And it is going to cost us money. So there was more that we could do, and we chose not to do it. Another thing was when one of the board members we had here made the statement that when the select board had requested that we have another meeting because they had got a phone call from Mr. Moreton's lawyer. First of all, a bell goes off in my head. I don't know a lot of lawyers that do it with phone calls. They usually do it on paper because you like a paper trail. And I would have loved to have had a paper trail. I'd love to have known what he was telling the board we should do or what they shouldn't do. But we don't know that. We just know that there was a phone call. That's nothing we can do about that now. But it was enough for the board, the select board, to be pushed into asking for another meeting, and that's the meeting that we had. We had people on the board that stated that, like Ken had mentioned, that she stated that even Ken Fredette said that he had lived in Wallingford for 6 months. Well, Ken had never said that. I went back and reviewed all of the tapes. I made notes on everything that was said, and that's not what was said at the meeting, but that's what everybody at the board heard, that was stated, that Ken Fredette said that he did that. Well, so maybe that's part of the reason why some of those 9 people decided how to vote. They were told that Bruce Moreton doing what he was doing was no different than any other snowbird that we had lived in Wallingford that went away to Florida for 6 months or not. Well, that wasn't true, because those people that are snowbirds that go away to Florida for 6 months, those people have an established residence in Wallingford when they go away. Bruce Moreton does not have an established residence in Wallingford. He still has been paying rent and living in Rutland for 1.5 years on our on our checklist and voting at a meeting at the behest of Wallingford on making choices for us. To me, I didn't think that was right. I don't know, I can go on, so I would have to take off. So the reason I called for this meeting and the reason I want to do this is because I wanted this to be put to rest. It's gone on long enough. Mr. Edmonds in the back is right. We need to do due process. We need to take it to a judge. I think this whole thing should be decided at this point in time. I think we should ask our attorney, our town attorney, or whoever we have to ask, to bring it to a judge, ask that Mr. Moreton be taken off the checklist until he can establish residency in the town of Wallingford. And after he's established a residency in town of Wallingford, come back and join our checklist. But in the whole thing about it not being the Mill River part, not being part of this, we all know that's not true, because it is part of it. And the reason, my feeling, the reason Bruce Moreton is doing this, not because he wants to be on Wallingford's voter checklist, so he can come here and vote in Wallingford, because I'll tell you right now, he didn't vote in Wallingford the last time. That could be proven, it's in the books. So he didn't do it so he could come here and vote. He did it because he wants to be on the Mill River School Board. That's the only reason he's doing this, in my estimation. I'm not speaking for anyone else. So it is kind of part of the reasoning behind having to do what we have to do. So like I said, my feeling is a judge should be handling this from now on. We should get this over with. I'm sick of kicking this can down the road. And with what he's doing now, we're still going to continue to kick it down the road, because now he's doing the same thing this year that he did last year. Well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And at the end of the year, we don't know that he stated that he's going to have an engineer come in and do a wastewater thing and all that. We don't know that he's even going to be in compliance. We don't know that it's going to perk. We don't know that that's going to pass. So at the end of this summer, he's going to say, well, I couldn't put water in there because it didn't perk, or I couldn't do this because of that. And we're going to be another year down the road. So then he's going to be, for 2.5 years, he's going to be on our checklist, and we will have not done anything about it. I think a person who lives in Wallingford should be able to vote. If you're a resident in Wallingford, I think if you live in Rutland, I remember when I was on the select board wouldn't let a person from Rutland be on the recreation committee because they didn't want the recreation committee, somebody on the recreation committee, making decisions on spending taxpayers' dollars. Yet we're standing here now where we have a person who lives in Rutland, is on our Mill River School Board, which is 75% of our taxes, making decisions for us, and they live in Rutland. We wouldn't, like I said, we wouldn't let them make a decision on whether to buy a basketball or not. But we're really sitting back right now and allowing that person to make decisions on how we spend our tax dollars. And I'll rest for right now because I got to take a breath.
Do you have a motion you want to make at this time?
I think we need more discussion.
More discussion.
Everybody, I would like to hear, and that's part of the reason I would like to have heard the people that are here that aren't from Wallingford. I want everything to be out on the floor tonight. I want to get this over with tonight. I don't want to come back here again. I spent too many nights sitting up thinking about this, or too many mornings waking up early and saying, well, what about this, what about that? I want to get it over with. That's why I felt that concerned people from out of town should also have had the opportunity to speak if they wanted to.
So further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to address Gary's concerns.
Thank you.
I'm one of the people that Gary didn't like my statement. When I made the reference of I am on the select board, I made the reference that the select board had been told that if this did go to court, we would more than likely lose the case. So that's what was said. His lawyer did not come to us. It was either the state of Vermont or our attorney said, if you take this to court, or if it goes to court, we will more than likely lose. Gary got upset because I said we will likely lose. It probably should have said more than likely lose. I apologize. So my opinion is, if we are told that we're going to lose, why bother taking it to court?
Really?
Well, transcript states,
Yeah.
you have
that in writing?
The transcript and both that and the video of that meeting says you made the statement that we would lose, not that we would probably lose, we might lose.
And I corrected that, I said we would most likely.
No, you didn't, not at the meeting you didn't.
No.
And that's when everybody made that
And
decision.
I just made that correction, Gary.
Well, we voted the last time.
Hold on,
Can you let the
Hold
chair
on.
take care of this?
hold on. Mark is speaking right now. I would like to let him finish his thought. Could you please also state, Mark, why there was the thought that we would lose the case, the reason why we would lose?
I believe, you can quote me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was stated that the challenge letter was out of date. Because this has been a year since the challenge letter was issued.
You can't talk now, we're not in public comment.
Is there an actual limit on a challenge letter?
I don't know, this is just what we were.
The BCA can challenge as often as they like if they think they have a valid reason. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The BCA can issue challenges as often as they feel they need to. That's in the state statute.
But sending a challenge letter is not required.
Yes, it is.
If you intend to remove somebody, yes.
Yes.
So a challenge letter was sent.
A year ago.
Yes, and we got a response.
Yeah.
And then no action was taken, is that correct? I was not on the board a
Because he
year ago.
validated that he lived here in Wallingford.
But
At
no
that
action was
point,
taken.
That, it was done with. He
Okay.
lived in Wallingford, that's what he.
So Mr. Morton,
signed to.
at that time, was never removed from the checklist, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, then I happen to I read the letter from the Secretary of State's office, which was, I believe, used at the Select Board meeting as reasoning why we didn't follow due process. Because in her response, she remarked that because Mr. Morton was taken off a second time, we needed to send a second challenge letter.
But
Is that right?
she didn't have all
Is
the
that-
information, so she wasn't getting.
Right.
That wasn't really the.
So,
Right.
so the decision was that we had not followed due process because we didn't send a second challenge letter after he was removed for the second time, correct?
We need to send a second challenge letter.
Well,
if you
excuse
want
me.
to challenge, or just go to court.
Except that he was not removed the first time. So she was incorrect because the Secretary of State's office, that woman had gotten incorrect information, thought he was taken off twice, so therefore there should have been a second challenge letter. He was not. Therefore, since no one seems to think that there was a limit on how long a letter can go, you know, when you need to issue a second challenge letter, and he was not removed more than once, then I do not believe a second challenge letter is required. And I believe that it sort of negates the idea that we would lose because she wrote based on false information, incorrect information. So I think that all of that resulted in having to have another BCA meeting, but it was all based on incorrect information at that time. So I personally feel that Mr. Fredette has a point that because emotions are running high all over the place, we all have our opinions about what should happen, it shouldn't be a matter of that anymore. And I think that we should all agree that the next logical step is to put this in the hands of an impartial third party.
Yes.
And I think that personally, that is the way we should go. We can turn this over to the courts. If they decide that Mr. Morton deserves to be on that checklist, then he will be on that checklist. And if they say that they do not believe that, then that will be what they come down with. But I think for us to continue arguing about all of this isn't really getting us anywhere. And we can solve this more easily by turning it over to the courts.
Kate, would you like to make a comment?
I would. I would really like to agree with Nan there. And to Mr. Barker's point, I think this issue has really torn up our community. And I feel like it has reached a point of really needing to move into a legal context in a legal setting and be addressed by an impartial party, and that would be a court. It's just not, it's really being very, very bad for will between neighbors, and it is inextricable with the fact that Mr. Morton is serving on a board representing us. This cannot be overlooked, and it's really time that this is addressed legally.
Other discussion?
I think something that I wasn't aware of, and just the primitive dwelling versus a permanent dwelling idea. If we have a primitive dwelling that can only be occupied for 60 days a year, then that cannot be a primary residence. So because I think a lot of the thought we had, because the statute seems to be very heavily in favor of the resident if they leave and they have intention to come back. That's the big thing we were talking about a lot. But if he says that his residence is a residence that cannot be a residence, then he has intention to come back to make a residence, not actually start from one that is already existing as residence. So that's where my brain's going towards versus everything else right now, is that in the beginning, maybe just because it's complicated and convoluted how it's written, but in the beginning, he cannot actually use that as a primary residence because it is a primitive camp. That's my feeling from just what we're hearing tonight. And that might be, I might be interpreting that wrong, and I'm getting just information from Erica that you have your idea of it, and again, it's that Secretary of State and lawyers that would be able to parse this out better. So that's my thought in this process in terms of voting. That's where it's the, regardless of whether or not we challenged everything else like that, in the beginning, it was not a residence that could be considered a primary residence. When he was living here on Depot Street, that was a primary residence because it is a rental. But when he moved from that place, he left an actual possible residence. And he doesn't have the primitive camp can't be a primary. I will stop saying that.
I've been trying to keep this fact-based and try to like the laws and the rules. But to go with Justin said, what Erica pointed out about the type of dwelling does have a big impact on how I'm currently thinking about this, which is something that has not really been clarified before. Because before, you know, it was like, what is determined a house? What makes a residence? But if we actually have clear, it is zoned this way, it is taxed this way, or whatever, that is a clearer determination of what the dwelling is, for me.
The one thing I would say is that we got a document back from the first challenge stating, Mr. Moreton stated that he was a resident. We now, everybody on this board has received an affidavit where he continues to state that he lived there. And I don't care whether it was legal or not, he stated he lived there.
I would like to ask
November.
that the public stay quiet during this deliberation.
Oh, that's what we're, what's commentary?
Okay, so never mind, and
Freak out, it's fine. Yeah.
is it on the plan? No. Okay, sorry.
Way over there now.
I think it's still flying around, so you might just want to continue. Is he on me?
He's also stated that he's made improvements to the property in this affidavit. So, to me, he's making the qualifications.
But it's also
I really think
incumbent-
if he wasn't a representative of the school board, none of this would be going on.
I disagree with that. I'm not.
You
I
can
don't care
disagree.
about that part.
That's what I
I care
think.
about somebody being on the checklist.
Hold on one second, Nan. Bruce, have you finished? Did you get to make your statement completely? Okay, great. You may go ahead, Nan.
Just because someone signs an affidavit doesn't make it true. And the BCA's job is to verify the truth of statements. It says it in our paperwork. So that is our job. So that is what we have been attempting to do. I was not on the board last year when a challenge letter was sent and he responded. At that time, had I read the challenge letter, I would have looked over and said, okay, but are you following through on any of these things? Which he has not. So you can say he signed this affidavit, but that doesn't make it true. And our job is to find out the truth of it, which is why I say, if we bring it to a court, let the judge ask him questions and let him answer them, and we can respond. And I think that then we get to the heart of this without, well, I think this and you think that. We just let a judge decide Mr. Moreton's residency status.
Yes, Gary.
And a lot of the wording and a lot of the affidavits and stuff is kind of ambiguous. It's when it's stated in there that I was able to live in that property from September until November. That's not saying I live there. It's saying that he was able to, he could have if he had wanted to, but it really doesn't state that he lived there. So if you go through all the affidavits and all the things that's been written out there, there's always so many little if you read it closely, things that you can really take it in more than one way, I guess you're covering your bases, but that's the way I look at it.
Yes,
The one
Curtis.
thing we need to keep in mind is that we're supposed to be impartial. And what we do, we have to apply equally to everybody across the board. And we can't just apply this to people we don't like. We need to apply it equally to everybody. So whatever action we take, it needs to apply to people who go to Florida for the winter. I know people that have gone to Florida that left last August and are still in Florida. So, do we have the right to do that? We need to keep this impartial. We need to do the same thing for everybody.
I would like to ask the public to not comment at this time. There will be another public comment, but it's not at this point.
So we need to be fair and impartial.
Okay. Okay. Other comments?
Yeah.
Yes.
Every time we're gonna take a vote on this, it's gonna change. We voted once to take him off, we voted again to put him back on, we're gonna vote tonight to take him off. Somebody else finds something wrong with that, we'll vote again to put him back on. So why not, in this board's interest, to make a resolution that we send it back to the select board, who in turn will send it off to for a legal resolution
Would you like
to
to
this
make,
problem.
would you like to make a motion at this time?
The select board can't do that, that's the BCA's position.
Then the BCA, I don't know,
BCA
but
do it, right.
then the BCA makes that
Exactly.
recommendation that we send it.
No.
Right now, we be done, because Gary,
That's a great.
you and I have known each other for
I
many
agree
years.
with you
We're gonna
100%.
fight all night, so
I agree with you that on 100%, I can tell you right now.
that way,
Send to a lawyer.
because this board is never gonna agree.
Okay, so Mark, would you like to make a motion at this time?
Yes, I will make the motion that this board sends this out to the legal folks to court to challenge the residency of Mr. Moreton for the town, in the town of Wallingford.
Do we have a second?
I second.
I second, third.
We have a second? Discussion.
It'd be my suggestion that rather than do that, we issue another challenge letter, let Bruce take us to court.
Right now, we have so I hear exactly what you're saying. I think because we have a motion on the floor, we need to vote on that motion first. And then, with however that vote goes, then we can entertain other motions at that time. But right now, we have a standing motion. Am I correct?
I understood. He was just discussing the
My
motion at hand.
discussion is not to do what you
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I think what'll happen is if we do another challenge letter, he's gonna sign that challenge letter, send it back to us. This board's gonna be right back here again. That's the only way that it can go to court, is to throw him off easily.
No, that's not what's gonna happen. If you send another challenge letter to him and he doesn't respond to it, he's automatically gonna stay on the voters checklist for 2 voting cycles, and we aren't gonna be able to do anything about it. That's what can happen there. That's what the law reads. You can look in the VSA, you look it up, we checked it. That's
at
what'll
this
happen.
time.
If you send a second challenge letter and he chooses not to respond to that, we have to keep him on for 2 voting cycles. We have to keep him on the checklist before we can purge him off the checklist, which will leave him on the checklist for 2 more cycles, which will make him a legal resident of the town of Wallingford. He can be representing the board, anything can happen. So that's why we don't want to put him on do that again, that's all.
And no matter how this vote comes back, if it goes to court, everybody is gonna be in agreement that we're done with it, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Moving on.
Okay. Further discussion?
Just last thing on that is like, what do we put into, what is the primary reason we are sending this to so we can agree on that part?
To establish whether Bruce Moreton is a resident of the town of Wallingford or not, it's quite that, I believe it's that simple.
But do we put in evidence about residency or versus staying, how long he's been there? Like, I guess that's the question that I'm still
I think
wishy-washy.
that's what the judge, that's what the judge will decide.
Absolutely.
I'm saying, like, what information we give to the judge.
I want all information. I want everything from day one, where we can see that he told us he was gonna do this last year, he didn't do it, now we're another year into it, now he's told us he's gonna do this, and we're kicking that can down the road. I want the judge to see everything. I want to see all statements he's made, all statements I've made. I want him to be able to look at everything and make a determination.
Right, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have to say, like, this is like our brief, saying this is why we're challenging, or if we're just sending all that information over, I got nothing else to say.
Okay. Then I think we're going to go ahead. Kate, do you have any other comments that you would like to make at this time?
No, I don't. Thank you, Kathy.
Okay. So now we're going to call the motion to vote. Those in favor of the motion?
In the motion, will you read that motion again?
Yes, can you say the motion again, please?
This board,
Do you have it written down? What was that?
Are we gonna speak? I think we'll be able to speak again?
Made for the board to send to an attorney, to court, to challenge the residency of Bruce Moreton in the town of Wallingford. Which I don't really know what it means. You're gonna hire a lawyer?
Can you just help me with this?
I'm not quite
Well,
sure.
we're not in public comment, and we're in the middle of.
Weren't we gonna allow the public to speak again?
Hold on. What's that?
Yeah, we told we could do public comment before the vote.
Public comment before a vote,
Okay,
which is appropriate.
okay. Comment, please.
So, in order to resolve this issue, we can't take him to court. He has to take us to court. And because that last meeting was a mistake, you can invalidate it right now. Just invalidate your last meeting, the results of your last meeting, say and that's all you have to do. And if you're unanimous, that's going to help us in court. Unanimous.
So with that said, do we still have the same motion on the?
Yes.
yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
leave it the way it is.
So we're going to leave the motion the way it is? Oh, yes.
I agree with Rob Parker that, again, I'll say the March 2nd meeting should never have happened. At that point in time, I sent a 4-page document to all of you, step by step, I called it what should have happened. I quoted law, and what should have happened when he was removed on February 15th, he could appeal it. 172148, it says if there's an election pending, it will be done at once. This motion, I appreciate the motion, but it's kind of vacuous here. It's like, what does that mean? We're going to take it to court. Court isn't going to say, oh, sure, Wallingford, come on in, we'll talk about it. No. Under the law, Bruce Moreton could have appealed the February 15th decision. It would have been expedient, it would have been clear, an impartial judge. By putting him back on the checklist, you kicked the can down the road,
Right.
and by the time we get through a court process, it's going to be months. I mean, the courts are backlogged from COVID. They're going to look at this and say, what? What is the motion? You know, what is it you want the court to do? Take him back off the checklist, he can appeal it to court, and they say they have to act expediently, and it's no charge to him, it's no charge to the town of Wallingford, and the worst that's going to happen, I mean, in my opinion, is they'll say you were wrong, put him back on the checklist, or they'll say you were right, leave him off the checklist. We aren't getting sued. It's, you know, this is scare tactics. And by the way, it wasn't you, Lynn, that I say has a conflict of interest. It's board members here. And
There's no conflict of interest with this board.
I'm sorry?
There's no conflict of interest with this board. If you wanted to make that statement, say who it is, because none of us have.
Is your niece on the Mill River Board?
What?
Is your niece on the Mill River Board?
How is that a
I
conflict?
think we're getting off topic right now.
We have another.
I won't even continue with the conflict of interest, but living there for 180 whatever days is in violation of wastewater regulations. Take them off the checklist, let a court decide it in an expedient fashion, because if you go through with the
Thank you very much. I think you're restating things that you've already said, maybe. I think we can move ahead with the motion that we have on the floor. We have a motion on the floor. Oh, do we have other people? We do, yes.
Somebody mentioned something about invalidating the last vote. Is that a possibility? Is that a real thing?
Yes, of course it is.
Well, no, I'm asking the board, what is the validity of that possibility?
Well, what I think is, if we invalidate it, then Mr. Moreton is gonna have to bring it to a judge, and the judge is gonna say, well, they couldn't invalidate that, and so.
No, he's gonna take us to court, sue us, just like the lawyer threatened to do.
May I just say, we have a motion on the floor. We need to vote that motion.
Or if
And
somebody
then-
hears something from the public, that they might sway changing the motion, that is also a possibility.
Yes, and that is, it is a possibility to amend a motion, but let me just say that depending on what happens from right now, there can be further action that can be taken, other motions there's a possibility of other motions being made, but I think we have to go ahead and see, do we want to keep the motion the way it is?
I'm going to say yes, and hear me out. If this board votes tonight to keep him on the checklist, majority of the people in here are going to be very unhappy, and they're going to find another reason to try to keep him on. We're going to be right back here in a month. But if we make the decision to push this out to court somehow, maybe it's not right, but if we can find a way to do that, because we don't know if everybody here is going to vote to take him on, or to invalidate the last meeting. So, not knowing the outcome of that vote, I'm saying I stay with mine.
Okay.
I'm not a lawyer. I'm just listening to the different speeches that people have made on the floor here.
Yes, your name, please?
I'm Dave Shulman, and I live on Centerville Road. When things come before a judge, it's got to be in a form where it's judiciable. And if you take your authority, which is to decide who is on and who is off the checklist, and you bounce it back to council without further instructions, back to the select board and their attorney, without instructions or why you're doing this, why you are giving up your authority to make a decision, they're going to have to go, no, that's your decision to make. It's not our decision to make. And it's going to go back around and around and around a few times. And that would kick the can down the road. If it is legally possible, and I don't know whether it's legally possible, to reverse your last decision of reinstating, then you change the way the forces balance. It makes the onus on Mr. Moreton to come before a judge and appeal using the statute that Ken quoted. At that point, when you send it that way and you take the name off the list, you also take all of your evidence and put it together in your motion and say, we want to make the record of these are the statements that were made, this is the evidence that we found that those statements were invalid, this is the timing involved, this is the applicable laws. You make your whole case as part of your motion to erase the last thing because you were misled according to the statements that were made here, so that you have a cause of action for why you're doing it. You were doing it because it was under false pretenses. And then you can go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Shulman. Was there another comment? Yes.
Yes, so, however it is that you end up getting there, I really hope that you end up
with this going to a judge to decide. I came tonight because I am really confused about this issue. I've heard a lot of very conflicting information, and it makes it hard as a citizen of Wallingford to really understand what's a good decision or what's not a good decision. And I think that it is amplified by the Mill River issue, because if one person in town is on the checklist who shouldn't be and they vote for a select board person or a BCA person, it's one vote out of the whole town. But on a school board, it's one vote out of, how many are there now? 11, yeah. And so that really magnifies the importance of residency, regardless of how you feel about who that one person is. And I think it would really help our town to look at this as a valid decision without bias, and therefore really quiet all of the conflict that seems to be circling about it and all the heat and passion, and make it just the judges looked at all the information and this is the accurate, best decision. So I really encourage, whatever steps it takes to get there, I encourage it to end up in the hands of the board.
So I would just like to say, we are supposed to be having another meeting at this moment. I want everyone to feel that they get to say what they need to say. However, I want us to really also value the time that this board has to do beyond this meeting. So if you have something to say that's new, please go ahead and speak. If you're basically going to be reiterating something that you've already said or has been stated, if you could please be gracious on that. Thank you. Yes.
If you use that motion, you can't use that motion. You cannot give away your authority. You have the authority. You have to do your job. You can't give it to the select board and say, go get a lawyer. You have to invalidate the mistake you made last time, and that's all. And we won't hear about it. No matter about letters, official documents, the judge will take care of it.
Thank you. Yes, Curtis?
We're getting a lot of opinions.
Yes, we are. I think I would like to move the motion. Or I would like to, yes, please, Mark, if that's okay now.
I'm going to change my motion, but I want to make a couple things clear. When you said he can't live in there for more than 60 days, that's in a row, not in a year.
Yeah, 60 days in a year.
Okay, then I misread something. I've had 60 days in a row in any given time.
No, 60 days in a year, because a primitive or a seasonal camp is designed to be something, say, to go to in the summer, if you will, during hunting season. It has no running water. It has no.
The running water and the toilet facilities, that's kind of a moot point. Because you can carry, you can carry water, you can have a compostable toilet. So that's a moot point. Well, yeah. But with that said, I'll change my motion to, I'll make the motion that we vote on the status of Mr. Moreton's residency. Not to change the last meeting, but to vote on the status of his residency. Because I disagree why we were here for the last meeting. So I won't make that motion, but I will make a motion to vote on his status. So if he indeed goes and we vote him off, then he goes to court. If we vote him on, we can either let it go or we fight it all over again.
Clarification, are you making a motion to remove Mr. Moreton from the voter checklist?
Yes, I'll make the motion to remove him from the voter checklist.
Do we have a second?
A second. Okay.
Okay. So now I'm going to call this motion to order. Oh, discussion, sorry, thank you. Discussion.
I feel like we have learned some new things during this meeting about how long he could have been at that house. If he was indeed there for 180 days, which is required for him to say he's a resident, then he's in violation of the law. If he hasn't been there that long, then he's not a resident. So I think what it comes down to is just the facts of this, of what we've been presented with today. The work he wants to do, that's great, and at some point it may become a viable residence, but it is not at this time and has not been up until at this point. So therefore, it just makes sense to take him off the checklist because he claims that that 2126 Wallingford Pond Road is his permanent residence, and it cannot be. So he does not have a permanent residence in Wallingford at this time and hasn't for a year and a half.
In your opinion?
In my opinion, those are just facts. He can't live there because there's no house there. So that's not my opinion. Excuse me? How is it? Is there an opinion that says he can live in that house? Because we've just found out he cannot.
So, Nan, if we can keep this moving, thank you. Yes.
Okay, seeing we're discussing this, in that case, and what Nan's saying is exactly what's being said by, can't think of your name.
The zoning administrator.
No, I'm talking, Robert Barker, and by Mr. Fredette, is the simple fact that to accomplish taking them off the voter's checklist, all we have to do is to go back and to eliminate the last meeting that we had, and then he will automatically be off the voter's checklist, because that's where he was at that point in time. And if we voted to do that, he would be off the checklist. And then he can take it to the judge and take it from there.
That's just not the motion that's on the floor though, already, no. I
The
think
motion on the floor is
from the voter check.
we need to vote on that motion first. We need to vote on that motion.
Aren't we still in discussion?
Yes, we still have discussion.
I believe the original challenge letter was sent out. Mr. Moreton gave us information that our board deemed as sufficient to keep him on the checklist. I'm just telling you, this is what happened, okay? We deemed it was to keep him on the checklist. That's what we deemed. Okay? So, February should have been a challenge letter sent back out to him, again, with new information. And it shouldn't, instead, it was voted that he be removed, is the way I understand it. And that's why the March meeting was reverse the decision, because I weren't here at the March meeting, so I assume it was because we didn't do the procedure correctly. So, if we're gonna do this again, it's gonna be the wrong procedure again. I believe we should be sending him another challenge letter and following those steps.
Yeah.
We can, but at that point in time, we put ourselves in jeopardy of him choosing not to respond, and then we keep him on the voter checklist for 2 more voting cycles. Yeah, we can do that. If we want to play into his hand, we can do that exactly, and we won't be doing our job.
Well, we need to do things the right way.
Well, that's not the right way.
That's the way I see it, that's the correct way to do it.
Why are we in a hurry? We can take our time.
We've taken a year and a half. What do you consider taking our time?
Let's make the vote, if you feel like we're not doing it
Your motion's on the table, we gotta vote for
If
it.
we're not doing it the correct way, then vote to keep him on the checklist.
We gotta vote on that motion, that's what we're voting on. I'm just making the comment of what way I feel.
Yes, thank you very much.
That's the way I see it.
Are there any other members who would like to make comments at this time?
The only last thing I would say is that on that idea of the challenge letter, we're working with information that he gave us in the original challenge letter, in response to the original challenge letter. We're taking that information that we do not believe that he has made those adjustments in what he said he was going to be doing. So that is a continuation of that challenge letter. That's in my estimation, because it's working. If he was saying like, oh, this is a new place that I made, then that's a new thing. But we're continuing with the same process, and it's still the same challenge.
I would argue against that, Justin, because Julie, correct me on this, but he was placed originally on challenge status, is that what, am I saying that right? So he was placed on challenge status originally.
Right.
Then we held a meeting and he was removed from the challenge status. So I don't see how that can be a continuation of things. To me, at that point, that process came to a halt. Now we're on a new process, it's a new challenge. And to me, legally, I agree with Tony that we need to issue another challenge letter.
So we have a motion on the floor. We are going to vote this motion now. Unless there's further discussion?
Being on a challenge, being challenged, and then having it being taken off the challenge list is not being taken off a checklist. It's being another challenge letter, and you can continue to challenge that person. The BCA's job is to continue to challenge that, to see that what that person said they were gonna do is what they were gonna do. But for that whole year, from when he was put back on, nobody did anything. So that made a continuation of that same thing. He should have been challenged 2 months later. Did you do this? 2 months later? In fact, I think in the way it was stated and what Bruce asked for is that Julie would follow up with that. And it was never followed up with more challenge letters, or with more, asking for more information. So I contend it is the same thing.
Are there any other comments at this time?
I have one last comment.
Okay.
My concern is that now we're about to take a vote on whether to put Mr. Moreton back on our checklist.
No, to vote
To remove him.
to remove him from the checklist.
So we know that this has become an incredibly divisive issue. We kind of feel how this is going to go. And my feeling is, even with all the information that was provided here today, that Mr. Moreton doesn't live here, hasn't lived here, has no permanent residence here, doesn't have a house here, all of that, I just sincerely hope that the people on this board will take all of that into account when they vote, because as Curtis said, this is not about one person. This is about anybody who comes into our town and we have this situation. Whether they're from Florida or whether it doesn't matter. We have a person who says he lives here, who doesn't, who hasn't for a year and a half, who may be working on a home, but that is irrelevant to his permanent resident status. So that I hope when people think about whether this person should remain on our checklist, it's simply a matter of whether he is a resident of Wallingford or not.
Okay.
Kathy, the gentleman in the back's had his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to make a comment to yours. There's a lot of people that go to Florida in the winter. They do not, when they go to Florida, register to vote. They may have been there for 8 months, but they don't register to vote. So you find somebody in this crowd that finds me that went to Florida for that period of time and they want to challenge me. I have no intentions on being a Florida resident or wanting to vote there. I want to vote in this town. I may have a travel trailer down there. I may have a little small 20-acre spot I put a teepee in. I still want to be a resident of this town. So you be very careful what you do. Very careful.
And I just want to apologize to you for not seeing your hand. Thank you. I apologize for not responding to your hand earlier. I didn't see it. Okay. Is there anyone else?
Carolyn Sloan.
Let's make it quick, please.
Yeah, I was just wondering if anybody on the board asked some questions to Bruce, like, if you got a renter's rebate, did you get a renter's rebate because you live in Rutland? That makes Rutland your residence, according to the state of Vermont.
Yes.
So if anybody has asked that question, they could tell me.
A judge can do that, sure.
I mean, a judge could do that, but like, instead of going to a judge, like, this is pretty easy. Where did you file your taxes? Where do you claim to live? According, has anybody asked a question like that?
I'm not sure. Okay.
We've had the opportunity to. He hasn't spoke to us.
And we're going to do it now. So we're taking a vote on the motion to
Take him off the checklist.
to remove Bruce Moreton from the
So
voting
yes, we'll
checklist.
remove, no, will not.
Yes, we'll remove him. No, will not remove him. Justin?
Yes.
No.
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 Yes?
Yes.
No.
Oh. Let's try again, let's do it slowly. Justin?
Yes.
Bruce?
No.
Maureen?
No.
Mark?
No.
Curtis?
No.
Yes.
Nan?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes. Yes.
What was,
Joyce?
what was Buster's?
Buster was a no.
And I'm a no. One, two, three, four, five.
We're gonna do this again next month. We'll be back in here next month.
7, 8 no's. So, wait a minute. 9 no's.
9
Is that right? 14?
And Kate?
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Yes.
Yes. And you got Kate's vote, correct?
So Carolyn was no.
Carolyn was yes.
This is yes. Okay, there's where I'm. Nan was yes. The Duchesnes were no. Sandy was yes. Gary was yes. Kate was yes. Justin, yes. Curtis, no. You did not vote, right, Kathy?
I'm abstaining unless there's a tie.
Tony, no.
And did you get Kate Getz?
Yes. She was a yes. Buster is a no. Is that correct?
Correct.
I'm a no. Mark is a no. And Ken is a no. 5, 6, 7, 8 no's. 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 yeses. I still don't have that right. Do I?
Yeah, that's 14.
That was 14.
That's 14.
Is it correct, Julie? We have one on the phone.
Julie gets to vote. She's the
Julie votes.
Okay, 6 to 8. So the motion failed.
So the motion failed. Bruce Morton is still on the checklist. Do we have another motion?
Make a motion that we move Bruce Martin to challenge status and send him to challenge letter.
Do I have a second?
Point of order.
Yes.
There was another motion on the board that wasn't, on the floor that wasn't actually taken off the floor. You can't change it after it's seconded. So you just have to go back and address that motion.
So,
I'd like to remove my original motion.
And I don't know who seconded it, but.
I think Nan,
Gary seconded.
Gary seconded. So Gary, do you second this, taking that motion off the floor? Thank you very much.
I want to remember what that motion was.
Yeah.
I said about us challenging the board.
Okay. And now with that first, thank you. Now with that first motion removed, we, I think, have someone.
It can't be removed. I said not to remove it. I didn't vote to remove that motion.
I said no.
Oh.
What is it?
Okay, well, let's vote on it right now.
So now we have to,
Mark's first one, okay.
we have to have discussion and vote on taking it to,
Giving it to a judge, right?
giving it to a judge, okay. So that's on the floor. Do we have discussion on this right now?
Well, let's discuss it.
I second the motion to go to a vote.
Okay.
Why do we want to rush through this, and why do we not want to talk about it? Are we so intimate in the fact that we're just gonna put your employer back on the board? I don't understand that.
We've heard everything you got to say 3 times now. If you've got anything to do, please tell us.
got something new to say. I say that, we are gonna be right back here again next month, is what's gonna happen. By voting to do what we just did, we've done exactly, we've accomplished absolutely nothing here tonight. We voted not to take them off. So far, apparently, it looks like the vote would be that nobody would want to give it to a judge. So when we leave here tonight, we're exactly leaving the way we came in here today. Nothing's been solved, no issue, except for Mr. Moreton will have lived there for, well, probably by the time we find out that it doesn't hurt and everything else, he'll live there for 2.5 years, in being able to vote for our dollars for the Mill River School Board, which I think is a paramount part. So I don't know at what point in time somebody's gonna request we have another one of these meetings and we all get together and do it again.
Point of order. There's no reason why you can't vote and Julie can't vote. There's no reason why you can't vote and Julie can't vote.
As chair of the meeting, I only.
Yes, you can.
You can vote,
You can
yes.
vote, Kat.
We
Kathy,
don't
you
follow
can vote.
Robert's rules. You can
Oh.
vote.
What was the vote against?
I just have seen,
That the select
Okay.
board adopted, apparently you didn't listen well, is that the chair can vote.
okay. I guess I got confused because our chair abstained from the last meeting from voting because she was chair. What?
She does for every vote, she never votes.
And it was also because of the simple fact that she worked for the Mill River Union School Board, which I feel that also that he shouldn't be voting because he's a
But
bus
that's
driver
not
for
the
Mill River
reason
School
that she didn't vote. She didn't vote because she was chair of this board, and that's why
Board. Do you know that for a fact, Kathy?
yes, because she stated
I
that.
told you it was because she was board chair, not because she
Yes.
worked for the district. Because when we brought it up, when it was brought up at the last meeting about whether or not she should recuse herself or
So-
not, it was all about,
Get back to the issue.
Yes, we need to get back to the issue at hand. Do we have any other discussion on?
Well, I do. I'd like everybody's opinion. I have no problem not voting if anybody thinks that's inappropriate.
No, I do not think it's inappropriate. You drive a
It's
bus.
inappropriate if you, there's two reasons
Change your financial.
that it's
status.
appropriate to abstain. One, you don't have enough information. Two, you have a conflict of interest. That's it. That's the guidebook.
No, but I will, ask the other justices and pieces, if anybody thinks that the very thing should vote. I won't vote.
well, I guess the question is it the person that you're voting for is your employer, which you could benefit by your employer knowing that you voted in the affirmative, whether that would be more beneficial to you in your job or not. That is where the conflict of
I
interest
kind of
comes in,
feel
right?
like there's a lot of people on the board that come down on the opposite political hue as Mr. Moreton, so I think if anything, my voting is, hurting my chances.
Well, let's put it this way, if you didn't vote and Kathy voted in the affirmative, which I don't know how they would vote, it seems to me there would be a tie vote, if it was 6-8, if that's the
Then who would
correct.
bring the tie?
We can't start manipulating votes.
I believe as a point of order, when you
Yes.
have a motion and a second to
Yes.
vote,
We need to vote.
discussion is
Thank you.
no
So
longer valid and you need to
so we should just be discussing the motion. We shouldn't be discussing other issues at this time.
Okay, let's hear the motion again.
Let's either have more discussion on this discussion on the
so my
motion,
question-
or to vote the motion.
So my question on the motion that I originally made, it was brought up, and I'm not sure the knowledge, whether we have the grounds or the means to take that to court. That's why I changed my vote.
Julie, do you know
Because-
if we have, do we have the legal means to take this to court as the BCA? We don't know. It's an unknown.
That's why we need the legal.
So that's why, that was my reason for changing my motion.
So now, we need to vote this motion, so we're going to vote this motion right now. It's going to be, if you vote yes, you're voting to take it to court. If you vote no, it's to not take it to court. Okay?
Take it to court or take it to the judge?
Take it to a judge.
Take it to the judge.
Take it to a judge.
For basic mediation.
Yes. Are we ready to vote?
One last comment. So if we vote to turn this over to a judge. It is for a judge to decide the merits of Mr. Morton's case, whether he remains on the checklist or not. So it's no longer our opinion or our beliefs, it's up to the judge. Is that right?
Looking at the facts.
Okay.
And we are legally allowed to do that.
We're not sure, that remains unknown, whether we can legally.
We'll find out when when we give it to the town attorney, we'll find out.
Right. Okay. So now we are going to take this to vote. So Justin?
I will vote yes to send it to a judge for review.
Bruce?
So what is the motion? I'm lost.
The original first motion.
The motion is to send this issue to a judge.
So you got a new motion?
Yes.
No, it was the original first motion.
Original motion.
I guess.
Taking them off, leaving them on the checklist, that's mute now?
I thought he modified it, but.
So the original motion was never removed, and the original motion was to take it to a
So you
judge?
go back to that?
Yes, the original. Yes, we're back to that,
This
Julie.
first vote didn't, then this second vote did not count, is that what you're saying?
No.
No, that was a
No,
motion.
that vote-
That was,
That road, Mr.
Technically,
Morton
probably
is
not.
on the checklist.
Correct.
Kate, do you have something to say?
I don't, I believe I understand the motion.
Okay.
So, you're going back to the first motion.
Yes.
Yes.
The board sends, what's this mean? Sends to the attorney, what? I don't understand.
Have a judge. Is
As a judge, determine the residency status of Bruce Morton.
that what it was? Have the judge.
right, the board would send this to the judge to let the judge make the determination on the status.
They don't do that.
Who does this?
Well, I don't know, like I said, that's why I kind of withdrew it, because.
Well, he withdrew it, Gary didn't want to withdraw,
board-
Gary wants to vote on it.
The board chairman, I guess the board chairman could, meet with an attorney. I don't know whether the board would meet with the attorney. I don't know, but, you can't just say, well, we don't know who would meet with the attorney, so that, why do we have legal counsel?
Right.
We would meet with legal counsel, I guess. I mean, legal counsel would either
You have to
meet,
wait to get sued.
huh?
You have to wait to get sued. You can't take him to court.
You can take him to court for perjury.
Well, yeah, no.
Yeah, you
I can't get that vote from here, so it doesn't make any difference.
Yes.
I'd be happy at this point in time to get a judge to look at it.
Ken Welch?
I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to go out with something that may not have no basis in reality.
Kathy,
Yes, Kate?
can the motion be amended to say that we would take this to legal counsel for consultation?
There you go. That might work.
Take this to legal counsel for consultation?
Does the board have authority to go to legal counsel, or does it have to go to the select board for approval?
I'll say, because if the select board makes the decisions on
Hiring an attorney.
Right.
But the BCA is making the decisions.
Well, the town agent makes a decision on hiring an attorney.
Which
not
is
the
your select board.
So that was Mark's original motion. To send it back to the select board.
Right.
No, those are two totally.
No?
No, it
No.
was not.
That was your original motion.
Well, way back, but that got changed because.
That got changed.
We wanted to make the board thought, to make the decision.
Because then the select board could decide, no, we don't want to do that, and our decision is moot. What the BCA says means nothing at all.
Invalidate your last meeting and you get sued and
I would like to do that, but I would like to do
all
that.
the mistakes will
Can't
be
get it
corrected
done.
and we'll know he's a resident. We'll know.
Still, at this moment, we still have a motion.
Well, if I can modify it, I will modify it to recommend that the board or whoever needs to reach out to the town attorney to determine whether the board can, or the town. I recommend, my motion would be that the board reach out to the town attorney to determine whether we have the right to send this to a judge.
Julie, do you have that?
You're gonna have to send it to the judge to take them off.
I agree, because after just hearing the discussion, that's why I pulled my original motion.
but it can't be pulled, so we need to vote on it.
No, Gary.
Yeah, he tried removing it, but Gary wouldn't go for
Right.
it, so.
So we're going to vote the motion now?
Gary has to agree to the second.
You agreed to the amendment? Sure. Okay. Julie, are you all set?
So Mark said recommend to the board, the select board? No. Recommend this board, reach out to the town attorney to determine we have the right to what?
We have a right to challenge the
Residency.
residency of
Bruce.
Not challenging residency, we already did that, or
Right.
it's more about, do we have the ability to take this out of the BCA's hands and then put it straight into a judge's hands without a challenge from the voter?
Are we all set? I'm gonna move the question.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
Oh, wait, it's going too fast
Yeah,
again.
no, Julie wasn't ready.
Sorry. So it went too fast. Justin?
You ready, Julie?
Can you repeat it, the motion again? Do you
So-
say the motion, Justin?
No, I was just trying to help clarify what we've been talking about. So, Mark, if you're okay with this, let me say what I think you're saying, and then we can decide whether or not I'm in the wrong or not. So, my understanding of this motion is that it is making a motion to send this issue to council to see that if we can have this taken out of the BCA's hands and put into a judge's hands for mediation. That's what Bob, I know you keep on making that sound, but that's the motion that's on the board right now. We need to figure out if we're doing that.
Yes. So
does that make sense?
That makes sense, yes. That's what we're asking.
So Justin?
Julie, do you have that? We're just waiting, making sure.
Julie, do you have that?
All right, Justin,
Yes.
was there a second to that?
Yeah, Gary did.
Gary was the original second.
The original?
Mhm.
Justin, yes.
Bruce, no.
No.
Yes.
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 Foster's no.
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 Yes. Yes.
Kate? I'm
Kate.
going to vote.
Go for
Okay.
Kate?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes.
And I'll vote yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 yeses. 5, 6, and 8 noes. There's 15 this time.
Wait, what?
Because Kathy.
That's
voted.
because Kathy voted that time.
So what is your count, Julie?
7 yeses, 8 noes?
Right.
Let's go through it one more time, Justin?
Yes, or what, do we want to just do all the yeses and then count those up and then do?
So I have Ann, yes.
I think I'd rather go down the table if that's okay. Justin?
Yes.
Bruce?
No.
Yes.
Yes. Curtis?
No.
Curtis is a no.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Kate?
Yes.
Kathy is a yes.
Kathy is a yes.
Ken?
No.
Tony's a no.
Yes. Yes.
Is it a tie, 8 and 8?
I thought you voted yes, Julie.
Oh,
I did.
8 and 8.
That's not.
A tie.
So 8 to 7?
We have
8 to 7.
We have to do roll call because,
Just for her to say.
right, yes.
Do I have that right? 8 yeses and 7 noes?
It's 9 yeses. Did you count yourself?
Say that again?
Did you count yourself?
15
So
people.
there's 15.
Yes.
Quiet.
There's 15 people. So she's right.
Isn't there 16?
There's 15 people. There's 15 people.
9 to 6.
15. Okay, yeah.
9 to 6.
9 to 6.
I have 7 noes, but
8 yeses?
Can you just raise your hands if you're yes?
Can we do hands? So those, let's do those voting yes. Hands up if you voted yes.
We just gotta,
And
Kate.
Kate. So two.
Right.
what do you got?
8. 1, 2, 9.
Kate, with Kate makes 9.
9. Kate makes 9.
Yeah, so we said
It's 9. Oh, good.
And you got Kate?
9. Should be 9 to 6.
Hands up, so I'm
Because she has one for Kate and one.
9 yeses, 6 noes.
Okay.
I make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, we have,
Second that.
we have a motion on the floor, motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Second. This,
Good night, everybody.
wait,
We had a motion in a second.
That
was
didn't
made
count because we had the other one we didn't deal with.
oh, wait,
Right?
hold on. We have a,
We had a motion in a second to send that challenge letter, so you gotta get that off
Before
the,
Peg brought up the point of order.
so you gotta get rid of that.
Yep.
I remove my motion.
the motion is removed.
remove
Do
your
we have a removal of the second?
Curtis, can you remove this for the, yeah.
Okay, so that, thank you. That has been removed. Now we have another motion on the floor?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Oh, no, wait. You made a motion to send another challenge letter.
No.
I did.
And
Oh,
it's,
he
just removed
That's
it.
the motion we're on right now.
that's been removed.
He removed it.
This meeting is adjourned.